Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into what makes the Argentina-Brazil matchup the absolute fiercest, most chaotic rivalry in international football history. Often called the Superclásico de las Americas, this is a clash that has spanned well over a century. It's evolved from a simple sporting event into a literal quest for national identity for both of these countries. FIFA doesn't just see this as a game. They literally call it the essence of football rivalry. And honestly, they hit the nail on the head, so let's unpack exactly why. You see, this isn't just about two teams kicking a ball around. This is about more than 100 years of intense passion, wildly contrasting styles, and historical tensions that reflect the pride of two South American giants. We'll be structuring our explainer today across 5 key chapters. We'll start with the century-old war, move into the era of brawls, touch on some intense World Cup controversies, dissect the infamous holy water scandal, and finally look at the ultimate battle for dominance. So let's jump right into Chapter 1, the century-old war, and look at where this all began. You know, it's actually kind of ironic. This whole thing started as a diplomatic effort. In 1914, the Argentine president, Julio Roca, established the Copa Roca to foster friendly bilateral relations. And sure, their first official meeting that year ended in a standard 3-0 win for Argentina, but wow, diplomacy went out the window fast. By 1925, during the Copa América, the vibe was so unbelievably hostile that the match devolved into a massive, full-blown melee that went down in history as the Barracas War. Which brings us perfectly to our second chapter, the era of brawls. During this mid-century period, these matches routinely ended in absolute chaos. I mean, we're talking about a literal war on the pitch. You had that 1925 Barracas War, where brutal tackles sparked a massive brawl pulling in fans and even the police. Then, in 1937, you have the Game of Shame. Brazilian players literally walked off the pitch early because they feared for their lives amidst that hostile crowd. And it just kept escalating. In 1946, a severe foul snapped an Argentine captain's leg, which triggered yet another violent pitch invasion. And the fallout from that 1946 broken leg was huge. The animosity was so deeply ingrained and toxic that it resulted in a staggering 10-year hiatus. A full decade passed where these two neighboring nations completely refused to play each other. Just let that sink in. All right, moving on to Chapter 3, World Cup controversies. As the decades passed and the teams finally reunited, the hostility naturally spilled over onto the global stage. Take the 1978 World Cup hosted in Argentina. These two played out a tense, violent, scoreless draw, perfectly nicknamed the Battle of Rosario. Because of that tie, Argentina needed to crush Peru by 4 clear goals to bump Brazil and advance to the final. Well, they ended up thrashing Peru 6-0. Now, this suspiciously easy win was heavily shrouded in rumors of bribery and political pressure. But to be absolutely clear here, these remain strictly allegations. No foul play was ever officially proven, even with the rumor mill spinning out of control about the Peruvian goalkeeper's Argentine roots. But you can imagine how Brazil felt about that. Even though they were eliminated purely on goal differential, Brazil's coach, Claudio Coutinho, publicly crowned his undefeated squad the moral champions. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare, a subtle yet incredibly effective jab that completely infuriated Argentine fans and poured gasoline on the rivalry. And that fire was definitely still raging by 1982, when the teams met in the World Cup's infamous Group of Death. Brazil's nimble, one-touch passing was just completely outmatching the Argentine side. The sheer frustration of it all culminated in a truly iconic moment. Argentine legend Diego Maradona getting slapped with a straight red card for viciously kicking a Brazilian defender. Brazil took the win 3-1. Both teams actually ended up getting knocked out of the tournament eventually, but the scars from that match, they stuck around. Which leads us to what is arguably the most bizarre chapter of all, Section 4. The holy water scandal. Let's jump to 1990, because this is where things sound like they were ripped straight out of a geopolitical spy thriller. We have to ask the question that dominated the headlines. Did Argentina actually drug a Brazilian player right in the middle of a World Cup knockout match? So here's how this allegedly went down during the round of 16 clash in Italy. Step 1. An injury stoppage pauses the game. Step 2, Brazil's left back, Branco, asks for some water and takes a drink from an Argentine staff member's medical bottle. Step 3, almost immediately, Branco complains of severe dizziness, nausea, and intense sleepiness. His performance just tanks, which eventually allows Argentina's Claudio Canija to score the lone goal, securing a 1-0 win for the Albiceleste. The media went absolutely wild with this, famously dubbing the supposedly tranquilizer-laced bottle agua bendita, or holy water. Now, neither FIFA nor the Argentine FA ever officially confirmed any foul play whatsoever. But years later, Maradona and coach Carlos Bilardo were literally on television joking about it. Bilardo famously said, "I'm not saying it didn't happen." So the truth remains totally murky, but you better believe it is a massive sore spot for Brazilian football fans to this very day.
Okay, let's wrap this up with Chapter 5, the battle for dominance.
After a whole century of brawls, wild tranquilizer rumors, and political drama, who actually holds the ultimate bragging rights? Well, both nations have produced players that are universally considered the absolute greatest in the history of the sport. It creates this endless cultural debate over whose style reigns supreme. You've got the fierce grit and artistic dribbling of Argentina's icons like Alfredo Di Stefano, Diego Maradona, and Lionel Messi, pitted right against the pure finesse and joga bonito of Brazil's titans, Pelé, Ronaldo, and Ronaldinho.
And honestly, the statistical rivalry is just as chaotic as the matches themselves. The official head-to-head record is so heavily disputed, depending on which unofficial friendlies you count, that literally nobody can universally agree on who has more total wins. FIFA puts Argentina ahead 43-42. The Argentine press claims they have a 44-42 lead. Meanwhile, the Brazilian side insists they are actually winning 43-42. It is a literal statistical battleground where even the historians are fighting.
However, when we zoom out and look at the major hardware, the contrast becomes a lot clearer. Brazil undeniably dominates the global stage, boasting a record 5 World Cup trophies. But Argentina? They completely rule the continent, holding an astonishing 16 Copa América titles compared to Brazil's 9.
And make no mistake, this war is still raging right now. Just look at March 2025. Argentina delivered a crushing 4-1 victory over Brazil in the World Cup qualifiers. That absolute thrashing in Buenos Aires was such a massive blow to Brazilian pride that it literally cost Brazil's national team manager, Dorival Jr., his job. So yeah, the rivalry is just as explosive today as it was back in 1914.
So, based on everything we've explored today in this explainer, I'm going to leave you with one final thought to debate. After a century of literal brawls, wild scandals, legendary icons, and mountains of glittering trophies, who do you think truly wears the crown of South America? Is it the beautiful finesse of Brazil or the fierce artistry of Argentina? Thanks for joining us today, and keep exploring the fascinating stories behind the numbers.